Alright guys, Scrappy Cooked again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. More drama going down ahead of the Esports World Cup in Saudi Arabia in just a couple of weeks' time. Rumours emerging as to what the repercussions might be for the rulebook that has now been officially revealed for these matches that are due to come up rather soon indeed. This rulebook specifies integrity must be upheld, sportsmanship must be upheld, which does not necessarily align with what we usually see from some of these pro players. What would potentially happen if Scrappy, if Crimp, among other players, were to do some things against this rulebook that the World Cup has implemented for the tournament? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. There were of course some good clips going down last night as well from the RP. Just quickly to go through though on some scrim results. So Vegas played Stallions yesterday. Stallions of course the FaZe clan black team, as you guys may well know them. They were the team that didn't win Challengers Champs. They came top 3 in the end. This is Brack, Dylan, Rex, Exceed and Asim. So good roster. Should be expected to potentially do some damage in that Group C. They are with Toronto, they are with Heretics, they are with Boston in that Group C at the World Cup. They were scrim in Vegas, and Vegas were, as you should expect, getting the better of them. So there's two ways to look at this. Either you think Vegas have improved over the last couple of days, because the first day they played with Fame, they got slammed around by the Ravens, and that does not seem to have necessarily changed, because Ravens are still looking good. But when they played the Stallions, or FaZe Clan Black, they did get the win. There was, this map was pretty impressive here on the Karachi hardpoint. We'll have a quick look at the scoreboard. So, Nero was 25 and 11, Attach was 23 and 16. Nero's numbers here very impressive, by the way. I mean, look at this, 162 seconds in the hardpoint. Dylan Rex had 0. Kind of impressive on both ends. Like, that is absurd. I mean, 2 minutes 40 in the hill as an SMG going 25 and 10 defends. Pretty absurd individual map there from Nero, right? But should I be massively surprised? Probably not. An excellent player. And I would say that for Nero, he should be one of the, if not the, top prospect free agent SMG. Vegas probably have a team option on him, but will they extend him? Probably not. They don't usually. They'll usually, Vegas's modus operandi is, okay, whatever. If you want to go to another team, fine, have fun, enjoy. And then in 2 to 3 months' time, we'll re-sign whatever players that we potentially can for other amounts of money, just because they don't have to pay salaries for a couple of months, and they'll just pick up some free agents. Now, maybe there's an argument this year to say that, well, if you re-sign Nero and somebody wants to come along and buy him out, they might do, and therefore you can actually make some money that way, because I do think that Nero should be a target. Like, if I'm a team like, let's say, the Los Angeles Thieves, I'm looking at my roster. I like my roster, it's good, but let's say they go to the World Cup and they get top 4 again, or they get top 6, or whatever the case is over there. I think even, top 6 is not possible because there's no double elim, so it's either top 8, top 4, top 2 or top 1. But if Thieves decide they need more firepower if they want to level up next season, Nero is certainly a player to look at, right? But over the first 4 maps, it was 3-1 to Vegas, and over the final that they played in the controls, actually, okay, they played a map 5 Vista, then they played a high rise, they played an invasion. Overall, it was 5-2 map count in favor of the Vegas Legion. So a couple of scrim bucks there to go through. There were some funny things going around as well, of course, from Bans here on the new Royal Ravens intro. But we've got to dive into what may or may not be happening at the Esports World Cup if these players are not necessarily on their best behavior, right? Of course, it's going to be a different type of event over there in Riyadh than it is, of course, in the US, where most of the events are held. Scrap was live on stream last night, but, well, he was also having to deal with the potential repercussions of this. So after the World Championship, Scrappy said this: haters are just fans in denial. Riyadh's coming soon. So here he is. Pretty hard picture, to be fair, with Drazah in the background when these guys were walking out to play their match, of course, that, well, Scrap slammed them. Quick 3-0. Drazah and FaZe out of the tournament. And this was just one such example screenshot of what Scrappy was up to, talking all sorts of trash. Now, that venue was just so good. The way the main stage was set up, everything about it was just spectacular. Obviously, all the trash talk was encouraged really by the way the stage setup was. Probably not going to look like that of the World Cup. It's going to be more traditional stage setup, which is, to some degree probably going to calm down some of the levels of, noise and trash talk that we got a couple of weeks ago. And also the event isn't quite as, important as the World Championship in the grand scheme of things. The players would rather win champs than the World Cup. At least that's true for the moment, right? Maybe that changes over the coming years, but, that seems a pretty safe safe prediction to stay the case. So things probably won't be getting quite as heated, but the issue is for the players is that, you know, they're built for this type of stuff, right? Scrap's throwing up the middle fingers. Kremp, of course, was throwing up the middle fingers. There was all sorts of trash talk in the post-game interviews. Obviously, people coming over the live comms, right, pressing the button down and talking trash to the opposition, and all sorts of stuff happening. But yesterday was spotted that this is the rulebook for the Esports World Cup on the behavior expected. Now, this, I think, is, people will say, oh, you know, this is not, you know, it should be the case or whatever. I think the reality is they're trying to do like a World Cup type tournament here. It's not exactly the Olympics, but they're also trying to do the Olympic esports, basically Olympics as well, funded in part by Saudi Arabia, I'm pretty sure. So there's reasons to understand why they want sportsmanship to be upheld very highly. I will just quickly say, back in 2020 when the league first came around in the CDL, they kind of had the same idea, right? They were like, look, we're going to really not dull the league down, but the point was we want the pros to be professional and we want them to conform to the rules. And if you tweet out about our game being banned, we're going to fine you $10,000 or, you know, whatever players were getting fined for and for what amount back in the day. They were, you know, doing sensitivity training with the likes of Cammy. They were doing media training with many of the other players. Did it really work? No. Have they basically given up nowadays on trying to enforce this? Yes, especially because everybody in Call of Duty knows that the personalities are the primary reason why the scene is interesting, and you really don't want to prevent them from showing their perspective, even if sometimes maybe it goes slightly too far. But this is what the rulebook says. All participants must at all times observe the highest standards of personal integrity and good sportsmanship and act in a manner consistent with the best interests of the World Cup, in each case as determined by the administration. Participants are required to behave in a professional and sportsmanlike manner in their interactions with other participants, teams, members of the administration, the media, sponsors and fans. Participants shall not use obscene or offensive gestures or profanity in their tags, okay, fair enough, player handles, okay, fair enough, team branding, okay, game chats, live play communications, lobby chat, shoulder content, interviews, or other public-facing communications of any kind. This rule applies to English and all other languages and includes abbreviations and/or obscure references. It'd be interesting to see what sort of references they might be able to come out with. Participants are expected to settle their differences in a respectful manner and without resort to violence, threats, or intimidation. Physical or non-physical, violence is never permitted at any time or place or against any person, including participants. Okay, that's obviously fair enough. The obligation to behave in a professional and sportsmanlike manner includes an obligation on the part of participants to arrive on time and ready to compete for all maps and tournaments. It also prohibits forfeiting a map without reasonable cause. So, okay, that's the little segment of behavior there in the rulebook, and this also applied to other games as well. And this is my initial question, is how strongly or strictly, whatever, this may or may not be enforced, because I'm pretty sure these rules were also in place for the Overwatch League World Cup event, which has just concluded, and I'm pretty sure there was a bit of trash talk, you know, post-game interviews, people, you know, swearing and stuff. So I don't really think that it's going to be that heavily enforced. It's just, it can be enforced, and the players will have to be on, I think, their best behavior. The reality is I don't think it's going to matter. Like, you can take the COD Pro out of the rulebook that allows them to talk trash and get away with it, but you can't take the rulebook that lets them talk trash and get away with it out of the COD Pro, right? Basically, if they're going to, like, it's going to be impossible to prevent someone in, like, the heat of the moment standing up and, okay, maybe they won't throw up the middle fingers. Maybe they could prevent themselves from doing that. But I'm sure, you know, we're still going to get some pointing across the stage. We're still going to get some stuff like that. So the debate is really as to whether it actually would be enforced if that was to be the case, and if someone did this, what actually would the punishment be? Because, you know, I imagine it's at the discretion of the administration, right, as they described in the initial rulebook post, but this is what they must do. So if they don't do that, what happens, right? Do they get forfeited, right? What is the next step? So as aBeZy says, seems directed at Kremp, keep all the bursts to yourself, because Kremp was really throwing them up, wasn't it? The World Championship, he absolutely loved it. He had them up for like 20 seconds plus. So this is kind of the point that I made briefly on the DopeCheck show last night, which is now live on the YouTube, is that, look, someone is gonna do it, right? Like, someone is gonna talk trash and something's gonna happen, but you know, for me the question is, what would the repercussions be? As Crone says, all 16 teams are gonna get forfeited, right? It's also not just like Scrappy. Obviously people are gonna look at guys like Kremp, and I tried to find a quick little screenshot of what happened back at Champs, but I could only find this one, but it's basically the same thing, right? We've seen it before. I'm sure we're gonna see this again for this guy. And then there's like, oh wow, here we go, Scrap and Drazah locked up in a Saudi prison after playing each other, right? Because, you know, these boys may well be in for a hard time and a rude awakening. But it's not just like Scrap and Drazah. Obviously, Scrap is kind of like the most well-known trash talker in the league, if you want to say that. But also, you've got 4 challengers teams. You know, the likes of Exceed, this guy's always like going pretty rogue. So, you know, you've got a lot of trash talkers in the Pro League that obviously, you know, like saying stuff that is probably technically against that rulebook. And then you've got 4 challengers teams. So, look, I think other esports like, you know, League of Legends and maybe Overwatch, you're probably going to get a bit less of it. But in Call of Duty, it is kind of what makes COD in some sense. So I hope that they don't you know, enforce this too seriously. I do think, though, in general, the players just have to be careful, understanding, you know, the country they're going to, what the rules and the customs are in this country, and also just, you know, what the actual rulebook says for the event itself, to make sure that they don't do anything that gets, you know, themselves or their team into too much trouble. So, yeah, excited to see how this one goes, really. But what do you think? Are Toronto going to have to head over there and put some, like, bail money in place to bail Scrap out of jail? I don't really know. But just a couple of things before we close out the video here. Thought this was kind of interesting. Pred's seasons so far as a player in the league. I do think they're really looking back at it. His most impressive year may be Vanguard, just because it was his first year as a rookie coming into Seattle Surge, winning an event that year in the way that he did. That was just really impressive. This year, I think was, I mean, last year was good also. This year, I think was great as well, though. And potentially, I mean, look, he won champs this year, so let's be real. You've probably got to say the season he won champs in was his best season, and in many respects, it kind of was. And also, I think that the fact that he upheld these summer KDs, playing on a team with superior players, like than he was on Surge, for example, is potentially very impressive as well. But he did have that slump in the middle of the season and some questions even from the likes of Karma on his playstyle that has made some people question really whether this was his best season so far or whether there is another way to potentially describe it. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
I met a guy at Champs. He comes up to me, a dude from Manchester, and he's like, you know how I got here? And I was like, no, how? He was like, Shotzzy paid for everything. He flew me out here and put me up in a hotel and got me tickets. Yeah. What happened? Like, tell me about how that happened.
So I was doing a Discord, because like I'm trying to like, I was basically trying to get ideas from like fucking different streamers and shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously Call of Duty's like at that specific state, it was pretty dead.
Pretty down, yeah.
Play, literally no one was playing. H were so fucking dead, so
I'm playing Scrappy and Rocket League, like
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty dead. So I'd basically watch like a decent amount of streamers that like do IRL shit and like basically just content, clip farm and all that shit.
Yeah.
So I basically got into, I was playing rank play and like I kind of just added viewers to my Discord call, like one by one, and I basically allowed them to ask one question and I'd answer and then play while I'm answering it and kind of just like make it a little segment or whatever. So this guy said like, yeah, he had like an insane fucking accent. I was like, oh shit, where are you from? He's like, Manchester.
Manchester.
I was like, oh shit, like you ever been in a van? He's like, no. And then he's like, oh, I don't have the funds for it. And I was like, oh, I'll fly you out, bro. Like, what event you want to go to? And then he was like, I forgot what he said, but there's like a whole TikTok about it. But
yeah,
like the conversation. But yeah, essentially I kind of just flew him out because I had like I said, that little like idea of like having the people on the call while I play. So
yeah,
that's kind of how it went down. It was literally the most like
just off this random thing.
The most random thing. And I do that a lot though in my streams. Like if you ever watch me play, like I'll do really random where like I'll meet a random guy and play for about $100 1v1, and
yeah,
I just do weird shit.